Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and this is going to be a quick video about the different type of watch collectors I see out there. Now, this is a little bit different to the video I did a couple of weeks ago on the different kind of watch enthusiasts. First off, go check out that video if you haven't seen it already. In that video, what I was looking at was what do people that are into watches see in an individual watch? Now, what this video is talking about is slightly different, which is how do people that are into watches gather watches? How do we collect watches? So not what do we see in any particular one, but rather what are the rules, the motivations, the ideas, and how we bring them together and stick all of the watches we have in a watch box. What drives us? What defines us? Difficult to explain in detail. I'll do it more in the video itself and hopefully it'll become a bit clearer. Okay, let's get into this. So I've identified 5 broad types of collector. Very quickly, I think they're the wearer, the curator, the neophile, the trophy hunter, and the player. Okay, so what's a wearer? Wearer is by far the most common, and one of the things that marks out a wearer as a type of collector is that they'll be the ones most likely to tell you that they are not a collector. You'll hear that they feel anxious when they have too many watches. They don't like the idea that there's a watch that they own that isn't getting wrist time. That's an expression you'll hear a lot from a wearer. They'll talk about watches having to fit with their lifestyle and their wardrobe. Again, because they are planning on wearing the watches. The wearer is, as I say, by far the most common type of collector out there, and the guy or girl you'll run into most often. The next type is what I'll call the curator. This is very much me, and the curator is very much kind of the archetypal collector in the minds of the wearer. And the collector is the kind of person for whom the mass of watches constitutes an entity in itself with its own rules, its own aesthetics, its own themes. So there's no single type of curator. It could be they want to own every Olympics Omega. It could mean that they want to own every Omega Bambino. It could mean that they want to own every JDM Seiko 5, or it doesn't, or they could just want to own 1,000 watches that cover a million different things. It doesn't matter what the rules of their collection is, just that there will be some pretty tight rules. There will be some pretty clear guidelines. And when you bring all of their watches together and put them out, you will see clear themes coming through that single entity called the collection. The next you've got is the neophile. That's a terrible name. It's one I kind of made up, and if any of you can suggest something better, I'm in for it. A neophile is a lover or a collector of the new. A neophile is my word for what Bruce Williams describes himself as, and which he put beautifully, but it just doesn't quite roll off the tongue, which is the watch experience collector. These are the people who want to have an experience and have time with hundreds, thousands of watches, but aren't particularly interested in owning any of them in perpetuity. They're perfectly happy for these watches to come and go, and all they want is their memory of that short time with it. Next, you've got the trophy hunter. This one goes without saying. This is the person who wants to have a watch so that other people know they have that watch. There's 2 subgroups of the trophy hunter: the conspicuous consumer and the performative consumer. The conspicuous consumer is the one that we're all used to. This is the guy who buys a watch, guy or girl, who buys a watch to show you how much money they've got, how much access they've got, how much influence they've got. kind of, and there's the internet tropes for the conspicuous consumer are well known to all of us. There's another subgroup which is much more subtle, much more under the radar, and which get a bit of a free ride, and that's the performative consumer. Because they're not using their watches to show you how much wealth they've got. They're trying to show you, in fact, quite often it's the reverse. They might be trying to show you how cool they are, how with it they are, how hip they are. These are the guys who can afford far, far better, but go out of their way to let you know, I shouldn't say better, that's the wrong word. They can afford far, far more expensive watches, but go out of their way to make sure that you know that they've got a bunch of Vostoks, or they've got a bunch of Casios, or they've got a bunch of G-Shocks. And the last group I've got here, the last type of collector, is what I call the player. Now, for everyone else, the curator, neophile, wearer, and trophy hunter, buying and selling is a necessary but ugly part of the business. That is not true for the player. For the player, the buying and selling is the hobby. That's what they enjoy. Frankly, it could be watches, sunglasses, Louis Vuitton handbags, sneakers. The player just loves the buying and the selling. They're into watching the prices of watches go up and go down. That's what they really revel in. Now, those are my 5 types of collector. There's another 3 types of people that can have a lot of watches, but I haven't included them as types of collector. The first is the hoarder. For them, the thing that separates a hoarder from a collector is essentially organization. Hoarders are people that have got a lot of stuff, but it is utterly unorganized. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no rules behind it. It doesn't form any particular theme, and quite often crosses into some kind of pathological amassment of product, whatever that is, old newspapers, watches, whatever, in a way that it is overtly harmful to the rest of their life. The second is the dealer, and this is the person who makes their living buying and selling watches. Note, the dealer and the player may look the same, may behave the same, but they are fundamentally different people. The player is doing this as a hobby to try and win. It's about the win for the player. It is, in the words of Michael Corleone, for the player it is personal. For the dealer, it's just business. For the dealer, they have a lot of watches. They buy and sell a lot of watches because that's how they put food on the table. That's how they send the kids to school, and it's how they pay the mortgage. Similar behaviors, but totally different mindsets, totally different motivations. Then you've got a close relative of the dealer, and that is the content creator. So again, that's sort of similar to some of the other collectors. There's going to be aspects of that. And a lot of content creators are themselves collectors in another guise. But they'll also have watches, and again, I'm speaking from experience here, they'll have a bunch of watches that they don't really personally connect with, that aren't really something that they would usually have, but are necessary for the mucky muck, for the business of creating content to put on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So those people I have not included as types of collector. Now, some of you might wonder where the flipper is and why I haven't included the flipper. Mainly because I think the act of flipping is not a type of collecting. It is a thing that people have to do if you are one of these types of collector. The trophy hunter flips so that they can get the trophies that they want. The neophile flips so that they can get new experiences. The player flips because he just loves flipping. The wearer flips because he realizes that sooner or later there's watches he's not wearing and that there's something else he wants. The curator flips because they make mistakes and they buy watches that don't really fit the collection. Flipping is an activity, it's not a type. So the closest you would get is perhaps the player who is flipping recreationally, but in general, I haven't included them as a type of collector. So that was it. That was my initial take on the 5 different types of watch collector I think is out there. I've already done one on the watch enthusiasts and now one on watch collectors. I have not really gone through the comments and tried to collate any of the comments to the previous videos. I was actually wanting to do these as a bit of a pair. And then what I'm going to do is get all of the comments and all of the ideas back, and then probably do another follow-up video where I might combine the two and then sort of refine the ideas. So if you think I'm wrong, if you think there's other kinds of collectors, if you think that there's other things I should be thinking about, stick them in the comments below. I'll bundle them up with all of my comments on what I think about watch enthusiasts and where they're coming from. And then I'll have a part 2 of all of it. Thank you so much. I've been Pete McConville. This is Not So Obvious Watches, and I'll see you later. Bye.